All right. Welcome back to Is It Crazy with God. We just had a whole ordeal with trying some new stuff out. So we got some new things coming for y'all. You just stay in your seats for now, but we got some stuff coming. But this is a fun episode, guys, because this is the 1 year anniversary of the podcast. So January 16th, 2022, we started our podcast, we started our YouTube channel, we started all of the things that are involved with, this Is It Crazy or Is It God subject. This Is It Crazy or Is It God movement. Yes. So we're excited that we are here a year later, and that is wild that it's only, that much time has passed. I can't believe that it's been an entire year. How do you feel that it's been a year?
It doesn't seem like it. This year went by fast. I think this year is going to go by faster. We got a lot of things going on.
Yes, we do.
So it's I don't know. It's been interesting. It's been fast. It's been a lot of growth. This channel's helped me out a lot to connect with God more, connect with you more. Keeps me accountable. This year we're going to be more consistent. So you're getting content every week, and we're going to start giving you more content every day. So this year's it's. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it.
So let me ask you this: what have you learned through this process of Is It Crazy or Is It God? Like, first, let me state that our mission is, we're just going to refresh because you can find this on the first episode too, but our mission is to inspire a community of people to read the Bible. I know that we've gotten some personal messages and some public messages, just like, this is great, guys, keep it up, and some personal ones when people reach out and say, I really needed to see this, or I didn't know that, I'm gonna go look it up, right? So I know that it's working as slow as we might. We don't know of all the people, right, who may have seen it and thought, I'm going to go read my Bible, because they might not have reached out to us, but we have a couple of people who have reached out, and so it is working. And I have a couple of people who have asked me to recommend Bibles to them, which I thought was really cool, because I'm not, I do own several Bibles, and I could, and I was very prepared to recommend. However, I'm no expert. I just happen to know those things. But so it is working, right? But so a year later, what have you learned? What have you learned from this process?
As far as reading the Bible?
Yeah, from the entire process. Like, if we hadn't, because when we started out doing this, we wanted to read the Bible, but we needed some level of accountability, because if we just tried to do it without reporting out on it every week, we knew ourselves, and we felt like we're just going to let it slip. That's what was happening in the years previous, right? Like, oh, we don't have to do it today. Oh, we don't have to do it this week. We'll start next week. And since we've been reading for this podcast, we feel a sense of like, okay, like, this is accountability, right? Like, we have to do it so that we're ready in time to talk about it, right? So through the process of, producing and filming and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, what have you learned so far? It could be anything about yourself, or about the process of putting something like this together, or just about the Bible itself. I have so many things I learned that I don't even know where I would go with that.
I can go first.
Okay.
So I have, first of all, reading the Bible it's things in there. I got a better understanding of the context of it. You know, sometimes I would read stuff, hear stuff, but reading the Bible, the reason, like some people take Bible verses and just it's standalone, which is not, because it has different levels to that, and you don't get that unless you're reading the Bible. You know, it's layers to it. It's like, okay, this happened because this happened 4 verses ago. Yeah. This is why this is stated. If you just read this verse, you're thinking, you know, like, for instance, an eye for eye, tooth for a tooth. Tooth for a tooth. You're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. You got to read the verses before and the verses after to actually understand how in depth that is.
And know what's happening. Because it's not just what it sounds like, right?
It's not just what it is. I've learned that a lot of people are human. A lot of people in the Bible have made mistakes. And God has forgiven them. Yeah. You know, for instance, Moses is up there pleading with God, has the 10 Commandments. He comes down, and Aaron, who's the head priestess.
The head priest.
The head priest. I'm sorry, the head priest.
Yeah, I feel you. I don't even
is
know. Is
dancing and worshiping a golden calf.
Yeah, that's wild.
But God forgave him, and he still was the head priest. Yeah. Him and his sons. But it's you know, so it's a lot of things that I learned. With this process, I learned to be consistent, and I want to be more consistent. You know. And the questions in the book, the Teacher Sunday School, are really good. I learned some things about myself that I tapped into. I don't know if I would have learned if I wasn't reading the Bible. And then trying to apply it to life. That's a hard thing because it's I'm going to be honest, man, it's hard to, you know, love and forgive all the time. Because we're so used to, it's just in our nature to be like, I don't like that person. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be kind. You know, forget them. Yeah. Right? But in the Bible, you're not supposed to do that. You know, even if that person has done the worst, you still have to forgive and love them. And that's hard. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So that's interesting because I've learned, I can hear, I feel what you're saying when you say you learn those things, and I've learned some things too that are different than those. Like, I guess one of the major things that I've learned is that the stories that are in the Bible apply to me. Like, I see myself so clearly in some of these things, and I mean, not all of them, right? Some of them I'm like, why would they do that, right? But most of the time I'm able to be like, okay, this is exactly what I've gone through or what I feel, and this would be the natural reaction to this happening. So I'm not crazy, right? Like, I everybody or lots of people would experience this, and even some things that I hadn't really made the connection to, right? And then I realized, like, oh, that was in the Bible. And I would go back and be like, yeah, what happened there? Okay, so this is normal. I'm just going to, you know, pray and believe and wait, right? And that stuff works. And I mean, not that I wasn't doing that before, but I think I'm a lot less sort of worried now that I've read, I guess, you know, just to be short to the point, I'm understanding more about God and his consistency and like what he does, right? So like, I know God is all powerful, omnipotent, all that stuff, but I wasn't sure like I am now that things happen in life and he's in control, right? I wasn't really sure like I am now that these things are normal, right? So I'm trying to put it into better words, but pretty much I guess my faith is strengthened because more, like, oh, okay, this is normal. Like, this is just what happens. And I've seen it, and I've seen certain things that have happened that are worse than what I'm going through, and I've seen him just react the same way. So it's like, okay, right? So it's really gotten me in a position to understand like who God is, and since he made us in his image, there are a couple of things that I understand more about myself as to, why I want abundance and why I want to, be fruitful and multiply, why I want to create things. So that's really interesting. So I've learned a lot about myself with this process because I know that, like, I guess before, and we're going to get into this in one of the questions further down, but before we started reading, I wasn't as confident that we could do this. Like I know we can do anything, but it seemed bigger than it actually is. It seemed like it would be this daunting task, right? Like, oh, this is gonna take 20 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? And it's not that serious. No. So, and plus, I didn't consider. Well, this is one of my answers for later, but I don't care. I didn't consider how impactful it would be as far as like positively on my everyday experience. So that's what I've learned. I've just learned to trust God more, and I've learned a lot about myself and what I can do. Yeah. So, okay, going to the next question. Okay, so this is kind of like, you're going to have to go a little bit more in depth. The question is, how has reading impacted you? Or what's an unexpected byproduct of the reading that we've been doing, right? How has reading impacted you? Oh, okay. And or what's an unexpected byproduct of reading the Bible?
Okay, so how was I impacted by the reading?
Yeah, how's reading impacted you?
I look at life differently. I'm more. I look at life differently, and I'm more forgiving on myself. Sometimes I tend to talk a little too negative to myself, and then reading is the Bible. I've learned a lot about how it's okay to mess up. You just have to go back to God. It's okay because, I'm going to be honest. Listen, guys, reading the Bible, God used to go hard, man. So it wasn't like, it wasn't nothing to play with, man, especially when they had the tabernacle and, God was there with a cloud, and it's like, man, and you couldn't mess up, but I've learned, like I've looked at it's causing me to look at life differently, right? For instance, in the Bible, he said that if you have crops, you grow crops, and the leftover you give God not even a tenth, right, of your rations, is you sacrifice. That's what they did back then. Then you keep for yourself and your family, and then you would give the rest to the poor. So it's in essence, there's no shortage of abundance. Everybody can eat. And you're supposed to be loving and kind because God is loving and kind to you. Right? But that gets like misplaced a lot. Because I think that You know, we're so worried about ourselves that we don't take into account that, you know, God is kind to us. Because I'm going to be honest, guys. If he carried it back in Exodus, a lot of us wouldn't be here.
Yeah, if he carried it today, the way he carried it back in Exodus. We
wouldn't be here. I don't know if I would. I'm going to be honest with you.
It was
he was very strict back then.
And I also feel like, you know, not that he deals with us differently, but I think, you know, as the times change, God is still the same. Mm-hmm. But because now we have Jesus, I think that is a little bit of a different element as it was, you know, if we're comparing between now and Exodus, right? Mm-hmm. So,
which I can't wait to get to.
Yeah, I can't wait to get there either. But I didn't mean to cut you off. But that was really good. Okay, so did you answer? What's an unexpected byproduct? Like, what did you not even think of that you now are experiencing as like, oh, you know what, I got this too. You know how people are like, I want to work out because I want to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And then they start working out and they're like, oh man, I have more energy too. I'm losing weight, but I have more energy and I feel really good. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's an unexpected byproduct. Or you might say, you know, it might not be good. Like, you know, you can be...
I think an unexpected byproduct is...
Of reading the Bible.
Is compassion. Like, so, right? And... Because
that's so kind.
Yes, man, it's making me sometimes take a deep breath and stop thinking about, you know, sometimes stuff in life happens. Somebody cut you off or somebody rushing. It's okay. It's okay. They could be going through more things than you're going through. Yeah. You just have to keep that into account. You know, because at the end of the day, because I'm reading the Bible, God shows compassion so many times over. Mm. Right? He showed compassion to Job. He showed compassion to Joseph. He showed compassion. He showed compassion to... Wait, hold on.
I see.
Isaac?
Yeah, he showed compassion to Isaac. He showed compassion.
Well, Isaac kept fleeing. And then he ended up wrestling with God or an angel. Now, it could have been wrestling all night, which means he was fighting against God, and God said, your name is now Israel. He gave him compassion. He gave Saul compassion.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, he gave Saul compassion. Yeah, he did. And now, I've also learned some people in the Bible were chosen by God, and they didn't, like, veer off from it. Like, for instance, I love sports, right? It's like some people that doesn't get talked about enough, right? Let's say Samuel. Samuel's like LeBron. He was chosen to be a prophet, and he was in the church since he was 3. His mom dropped... This is another thing about God, too. If you do what he says, you will get anything that you want, that you ask him for. When I say that, I mean in the means.
In his will.
I'm not talking about...
Like if he's willing it. For sure. Absolutely.
Well, actually...
You're not going to get, you know...
I want 10 lives. No. Like, hey, if I do this, God, I want to be abundance. You know? Here. Mm-hmm. You know? So Samuel's mother couldn't have kids, and he said, I want Samuel. And she says, okay, but what am I going to, you know, like, I want kids. This is my only child. He said, I got you. She had more babies.
Yeah, she had like 6, I think. 6? Maybe even more than, I don't know.
Maybe 7.
I know it was at least.
But he dropped Samuel off. And Samuel, since was a kid,
5 or 6.
Was a prophet. And that's all he knew. Some people in the Bible are just born to be great. Some people in this world are just born. And some people have to work for it, like Joseph. They're going to go through trials and tribulations that they don't understand, but they still don't complain to God. You know?
Yeah.
And God, and I learned that Dinosaurs are real. So are dragons. So are mediums and necromancers. And God speaks through your dreams.
Yeah.
A lot. So you got to pay attention to what you're putting in your mind at night. You know. So yeah, that's it.
That's what's up. Okay, so I'm going to answer that question now. Mm-hmm. How has reading impacted me, and what's an unexpected byproduct of reading? Mm-hmm. I think I already said that, but no. Okay, reading has impacted me. Mm-hmm. It has made me more patient, even though I do still need much more. It has made me more patient. It has I got a long way to go here. It's like, God's not done working on me yet. And James is a lot kinder than I am when it comes to certain things. But I am becoming more kind and more compassionate. I wouldn't say that's the number one thing for me, but it's definitely made me more patient. So it's impacted me in that way. And it's made me, one of the unexpected byproducts of reading is, what did I not expect? Well, I didn't expect to be able to remember some of this stuff, right? Typically, you read, just take a regular book, for instance. Mm-hmm. You read it and, you apply it or you don't, or you go away with your thoughts. And then sometimes the information comes back up later. But with this, it's so interesting how it seems like everything applies to current situation or previous situation that I can literally apply the information that I read directly to something that's happened in my life or that, is happening in my life. Mm-hmm. So, I guess the wisdom of oh wow, this is like a user guide. You know what I'm saying? And I had heard that before, the Bible is life's instructions, but I didn't realize that it was so useful. They'll say it was so useful, but I didn't realize how much was actually connected, which is another point that I was thinking about when I was thinking about the questions, is that a lot of the things that I'm reading in the Bible, and we've said this before, I think, on one of our episodes, a lot of the self-help books or the personal development courses and things like that, they borrow a lot from the Bible, right? Like you talked about abundance, speaking things and having them, come true, writing things down, right? Habakkuk, I don't know how to say it. 2:2 talks about writing things down.
Reap what you sow.
Yes, talking about reaping what you sow, talking about, there's some verses on planning. There's some verses on everything, pretty much, that a human experiences. And it's funny because, on communication, on being prideful, on being, there's all this stuff. And it's so funny because, the themes that we see over and over in the books that we read, right? It's obvious that they've taken it. Some of them even say it says in the Bible, right? But some of them are that's the same principle that is held up in the Bible. So of course this works because of course this is true because it came from the book. And that's one of the things that I realized earlier on is that science is a study of what has happened, but God is telling you what's going to happen in the Bible. And it is it's so funny to me when scientists or when people who you claim to be non-believers are that's interesting because that's a rule that I live by. It's interesting that it's been in the Bible all these thousands of years. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's the same thing I came up with. Oh, good for you. Well, maybe you should take a look at this. Man. Anyway, not judging anybody.
That post you sent me when he was when God creates the heaven and the earth, that's the time, space, and matter.
Yeah.
I was wow.
Yeah.
So scientists.
So that's probably the byproduct. All right, so let me go into the next question. What is a misconception that you had coming in, or a common misconception that you feel like people have misconstrued about the Bible? What's a misconception about reading the Bible that you think people have taken on and it's not really true, right? I have a couple.
A misconception.
I'll start.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, I have a couple actually. So number one, a misconception that I had coming in is that I wouldn't understand it. Mm-hmm. Right? I was like, okay, this is in old world English or whatever, right? Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to sit there and stomach this. It's going to be boring. It's going to be whatever.
I got one.
But as we came to realize, there's so many different versions. Mm-hmm. And you could actually get a New Living Translation or easy to read, ERV, ESV, English Standard. Mm-hmm. I love my Amplified version. I feel like the Amplified version is so good for me. Now, I have come across a couple of versions that I wouldn't, that are fine for reference, but I wouldn't read as the main thing that I'm reading. So like, somebody told me the New International Version is not necessarily the one that you should like take onto your heart. Also, there's this one called the Free Bible version, which I don't know what that means. The Free Bible version, like, but there was a couple of times as I'm doing my memory verses that I could see that like, well, this is different than what it says. Like, what it says here is not exactly. It doesn't translate. Sort of like the same meaning. And sometimes when I'm doing those memory verses, that's why I like to look up different versions, because I could get something more out of having it being explained a different way or using a different word or wording. It's like, oh yeah, but it means the same thing. You can see like, oh, this says it this way, but this says it this way, and I get it because it means the same thing, but I actually identify with this wording more because it hits something different. You know what I mean? But anyway, my point was I thought it was going to be really hard and I wasn't going to be able to keep up and it was going to be boring. That's another misconception. I thought the Bible was going to be boring, guys. I'm not going to lie.
Some wild stories,
I thought it was going to be boring. I was like, okay, I got to do this because this is what God wants me to do. Even though I've gone to church for several years, decades, and I haven't ever been like bored about what they're preaching about. But I guess it's just an assumption is that, oh, they took that out of the Bible and made it applicable, right? I guess I always thought that. And now that I'm reading the actual stories of the Bible, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is in here. Or I can't believe that happened. Or wow. You know what I'm saying? There's even stuff that like is cringy, like, oh my God, I could never imagine that, right? So it's not boring at all. And I am able to understand it. Yeah. So those are two common misconceptions. What about you?
Okay, so here's a common misconception, I think, and maybe I'm going a little bit too crazy here. The devil is responsible for the evil of men. That's a huge misconception.
Now that's a good one. Speak on that, please.
Because what I've read in the Bible is that idol worshiping, the devil didn't tell Aaron to idol worship. The devil didn't tell, oh man, you could talk about when they got lost in the wilderness. You know, the devil's not convincing Sodom and Gomorrah. That's men. It's men that are. So sometimes I think it's like the devil made me do it, and it's like, did he?
Yeah.
Or was it just you? You know, so evil of men and women. So we gotta. I think it's just a natural thing is when, for humans to listen. There's two sides, evil and good, right? Right. But I think everybody's like the devil made me do it. And it's them. It's them. It's because there's some stories in the Bible, man, I was like, dang. And there's no devil. It's the men were just evil. Yeah. They were just evil. Yeah. Remember, what son was that? Was it Isaac's sons?
Oh, that went and killed all of
they killed 40 men. Well,
they did that because of what their sister, right? What happened to their sister? But that was still extreme.
Extreme.
I mean, listen.
But I get why they had to carry it like that But the men that did it with the sister, they were wrong.
Yeah,
they were dead
true.
wrong.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So,
and it wasn't necessarily the devil saying like you should go and
yeah. That's all I'm saying. Like it's a crazy thing. It's you know, I think that's a major misconception because we're on 1 Samuel and the devils only came up one time.
Oh, it's back in Genesis. Are you talking about it first?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I can remember now. Yeah. It's possible
like
that
the devil didn't tell Saul to kill David. You know what I'm saying? Like that, he's just
all right now. But wait a minute. Let's talk about this because there have been a couple times where they've called on these, spiritual guides or whatever, right? And I don't know what they're worshiping. It's also really funny to me when people are like, call your God and all this. Yeah. It's like, I get what you're saying and I agree with you that a lot of evil is coming just from men ourselves, just because like anything in the state left to its own devices is going to get, tainted or whatever. Something's going to wear off. But I definitely am not sure that the devil is not popping up like I don't know that he wasn't in Sodom and Gomorrah. I feel like that was probably his playing ground, but I'm not saying that he convinced them to do everything there. It's not in the Bible. It doesn't say that. But what I'm saying is we've only read about it, right? So you got to go by what's written. And I do feel like
I feel like that would have been said. Like I feel like God likes.
Well, here's the thing: when they call on these like Balak and Balaam, that whole story, when he went and got him, and then the back when the Pharaoh and Moses, and when they first escaped Egypt, there was talk of these spiritual people like necromancers or whatever they call them that like could do tricks. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying that that's devil worshiping, but I have to liken it to some other spirit other than God, right? And maybe that's not even evil. Maybe it's just some hobby that's not.
Yeah, I think it's worshiping another idol.
Ideal. But here's another thing, like when they brought Samuel back from the dead. Or that brought up the spirit. It was just funny what he said to him. Like, why are you bothering me?
Why are you bothering me? Yeah. Well, I think that's God is giving people the ability to do it, and I don't think He likes that unless He tells you that you need to do it for Him and His will. I think that the medium that Saul went to wasn't operating outside of God's will.
You think he was operating outside? She was. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
So mediums are real, guys. But I just don't know the depth of... I can't verify if a medium is real or not. You know? But they exist.
Yeah, I get it. I definitely could,
I won't go to
anticipate that. I definitely believe in this, in like the beyond, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you would have to. And I do think there are spirits even lingering here on earth. Yeah. But here's my thing, like, why would I ask them something before I ask God something? Or like in Lua, right? Mm-hmm. So like, instead of, why would I go to some spirit to give me some answer and trust the spirit? Because here's what's interesting to me about like, oh, bring this person back and let's hear what they have to say about this. You're trusting not only the medium, to even if they're like an honest individual, you gotta trust that they're so good at what they do that they can tell the difference between spirits who are telling the truth or not, right? Like, did you get the right person? Are we talking to the right, you know what I'm saying, spirit here? And you gotta understand that like you don't know what's going on in that realm, so they could have ulterior motives. You're not just like, picking someone from the dead or wherever. I'm not saying just from the dead, but like there's just a lot going on that's not where we are in our current realm, and I just rather leave that alone because I don't want to open nothing up that I'm not prepared for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So anyway, that's my thing. All right, on to the next question. So this is a 2-part question as well. What was harder? This is talking about reading the Bible our reading, and all the experience. Mm-hmm. What was harder than you expected, and what was easier than you expected?
Harder. What than I expected? Sometimes in the Bible I have to read, and this is why it's good to have a study Bible. What's harder than expected is sometimes translating certain verses. And I got to read the study Bible. Like, okay, this is what this means, because even though I've read the story, it's like, well, wait a minute, is it what? Does that happen?
What does that mean?
What? That is a little harder than expected. Now, the great thing is I switched from the King James to the, I think this is the English Standard version.
Oh, I remember when that happened.
Oh, man, so King James is...
That's a whole story.
It's a really... It's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It's harder than expected. Because there's a difference than if you're in church and a pastor says it versus you sitting at home reading it and studying it yourself. Because there's no pastor there, right?
Yeah, to break it down.
To break it down. So that's why it's good to have a study Bible, and the English Standard Version is good. Because it'll put things in perspective. So that was the harder for me. What I thought was easier for me is filming. I thought filming was going to be hard to get on camera and to be open and honest, but it's easy. That's her cat.
Buttercup.
It's easy. She wants some attention. Whatever. It's easy to get on here and just talk about my life experiences, how was my week, waking up, being transparent, talking about the Bible, what I've learned. I thought that was going to be harder than expected, but it's easier. So those are my answers.
I'm going to have to piggyback over a couple of those things. So I'll start with what's harder. What's harder than I expected was, okay, so two things come to mind. Number one is it takes a lot to set up. You know what I'm saying? Set up and break down. That's just podcast related, right?
It does.
We started out in a different space and we didn't have a lot of space at all. Mm-hmm. And so we would have to be really careful, and it was crazy.
Once you sit down, you cannot get up.
You couldn't move, if you moved, then something could fall. I think if you go back and watch some of those earlier episodes, you can hear things like fall, or sometimes you get up and you knock a plug out. Mm-hmm. So setting up, and then what I used to do when we first started, the editing process was a lot harder. So this is really not about the Bible. This is about the podcast part. But I do have a one for the Bible. What I used to do is I would be so meticulous about the sounds and James is sniffling in the background, or there's this or there's that. And we say and and so much, and I didn't notice that until I was editing us.
You didn't say that much this time.
Used to bother me. Well, I don't know if I did. It used to bother me, and then I was like, you know what? This is me. I'm going to figure that out if I do, but I'm not going to let that stop me from doing this, because I think the first few weeks when we started, I was so gung-ho about perfecting every little thing, and then it would take me hours to edit. And now I don't care that much, as long as we're talking, look, the point is to get the information out about what we read, and to react to it, and to bring it to people and ask them their thoughts, and to tell what we experienced from it. So if I say and that's turning someone off to the point where they can't listen, which I don't think is the case, then that's just what it is. And I don't think it should, because before it was taking me almost half the weekend. If we would film on a Saturday, and it would take me either all Saturday, the rest of Saturday night, or Saturday night and the next morning, and I would still have to do other stuff like clean and meal prep and get ready for work, and sometimes I would have to do work during the weekend, and it became a point of contention because I wasn't able to like get to stuff, right? Like I can't do laundry, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, and then I started to get frustrated. And that showed in our relationship, and we weren't fighting, but it was just kind of like it was an irritating thing. And then I realized, like, I don't really need to go so hard with the editing, right? So anyway, the setting up of the lights and all of that stuff used to be hard, but it's not really anymore. I mean, I'll say,
no, it was easy.
It wasn't hard. It was just. It was, you know what? It was a lot. It was hard. I ain't gonna lie. Now it's easier, but still, like so everything is easier now than it was. But back then, that was harder than I expected. Now, as far as reading is concerned, I guess one thing that was harder than I expected was to stay on schedule. When we first started, we had to play around with some stuff, and like really. We got a good groove going, and then we had some life changes. So I'm not making excuses or whatever, but we had to move, so we couldn't film during the few weeks of like actually packing up our things. And then when we got settled in, it took a couple weeks to get back. Then we started back up here, and then we had a travel and a sickness and the holidays. So we didn't have a plan to get back, which was the thing. It's like we didn't expect to come back and be sick. We didn't expect to have things just kind of be off balance. And so there was a point of survival mode there where it's just like, yeah, we would love to get back into this, but we really kind of have to, do what we have to do in real life. Like I would love this was my main job, but there's just a lot of stuff happening. So we did what we had to do, but I'm still proud. Like we got through almost a third of the Bible, and I mean, like that is crazy to me, right? So, but so the harder than I expected about reading is keeping a consistent schedule. It was consistent for a while, and I know we can get back there because of some of the things, the way we set things up now, but. That's definitely something that I'm not going to front. Like, if you have an aspiration to read the Bible, especially with another person, because it would be easier, too, to read if you were just, like, but when you're reading with another person, you want to make sure that you have a congenial, like, time.
And accountability,
right?
too, when you read with another person.
Yeah. But it's also, there's so many different... like benefits of reading with another person. Like we'll stop and be like, did you understand that? So anyway, what was easier than I expected? I think it was easier. We've been running through these chapters. Like I find now that and this kind of bleeds into the next question, but I find now that I need to read and I need to be in the Word and like experiencing it like in solitude sometimes, but definitely together. So there's something that I guess I thought it would be hard to wake up early and read, but like sometimes I'll wake up and read and go back to bed, but the reading part is nothing. The reading part is the joy. It's like, yeah, let me get a glass of water, a cup of coffee. Typically I don't have a cup of coffee and go back to bed, but like there have been times where I'll read and then be like, okay, that's got what I needed, and go back to bed. And so beyond even being easier, it's a necessity for me now to be able to be exposed to the Word because it's like healing. It's healing something in me. So that's easier than I expected, to just be breezing through this thing. And we didn't set out with initially way back in the day, we had both said we wanted to read the Bible and it was going to take us a year. But then once we really started, once we put that off for several years and then we started the podcast, when we started this podcast, we knew that we were doing it for accountability and also to be engaging other people, to read and encouraging other people. But we had decided in the beginning that we're not going to be on some like time rehearsed thing that we're going to take our time, and the point is to understand what we're reading. So we never had a goal of like, we're going to have this done in a year. Obviously, we're a year in. We kind of had a couple breaks in there, so we probably would have gotten closer to half of it in a year if we would have just stayed consistent all year. But I think we're actually gonna finish this year that we're in. But if we don't, that's fine too. Because then
we're probably gonna get to like right here.
So maybe 2/3. Oh, you're talking about like 90%.
Nah. I think
we'll read here. More. So if this is a number, then I would double that number. Yeah, and then I would add
right here.
Yeah, then I would add on a few because I think we missed some time there, right? So maybe
here, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think we're probably going to get through like a good 75 to 80% by the end of this year. But I'm not rushing nothing, and it's funny because I'll read something and then go back and read it again and take on a second meaning.
Yeah.
Right? I think reading the Bible is like, this is just hit me. I think reading the Bible is like working out.
Yeah.
Like you're never going to be done.
No.
Right? Like you might do it all at once for a result, right? Like, cause we're trying to get through it and understand all of it, but then I'm always gonna be having to read it.
It's always gonna be pulling and tearing new muscle.
Yes,
always.
That's good. So, like, we're reading it all right now, just like I want to get in shape, right? I'm gonna get in shape this year, and it's not like I'm gonna be able to say, okay, I'm done. Okay, I'm fit for the rest of my life. I'm gonna have to keep revisiting and keep maintaining it. So that's the same thing with the Bible. So anyway, okay, on to the next question. So I don't know if we've already kind of answered this through other questions, but what are some takeaways of your experience of reading? Some of your major key takeaways, like things that you feel like, you know what, I'm glad I did this because I've got this now.
It built a level of consistency. It also made, man, I'm not gonna lie, my relationship with God got a lot better.
Yeah.
Whole lot better. I started to understand Him more. And sometimes, man, we'll and here's a real thing. I will go to church, leave church, and then forget what the pastor said.
Throughout the week, yeah.
All week.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would go back to church and do it again. Whereas this time is different. Yes, we are about to start going back. This time is different because when you're reading the Bible and studying it on your own time, you develop your own relationship with God. Because He's talking you through His Word. And you're able to start looking at life differently, as we all should. We were just raised to think that the world is just this unique thing, and it is. And we're raised to think that it's only one type of author. It's like God has made this earth so everybody can create and live in abundance. Mm-hmm. It is a necessity, and then for some reason we revert back to having this limited mindset. And then in the Bible, there's no limit. Do you know that? There's no limit. Mm-hmm. So and man, the lessons I learned, patience. I did not know patience is a skill. I know they say it's a virtue. I get that. But having patience is a skill because it is very difficult to do. And like, shout out to my man Joseph. I don't think he gets enough praise. He sat in prison for something he didn't do for years, decades, and didn't complain. Didn't complain to God one time.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm learning. I would have been complaining. I'm not gonna lie. I would have been like Job in that joint. Man, what's up? I'm supposed to be him. So that's what I'm getting through reading the Bible.
Well, look, I I have taken away, let me just start by saying, yes, I agree with you that you've taken that away. I've taken that away too, this relationship with God. And before, I didn't really necessarily understand what that meant. Mm-hmm. But as I'm reading about the people in the Bible and their relationships with God, it's like you can call on God and really trust that He has your back because you see how other people have done it well. Right? And like Joseph, for instance, when he was in jail, he knew that God was going to have his back. So he didn't, you know what I'm saying? He wasn't in there crying and worrying and telling everybody, right? He told the one person, like, hey, don't forget about me when you get out of here, which the guy ended up doing, forgetting about him. But when he did get out, like, he vouched for him. But I think it's easy to just think that you're the only one going through something and that it's not going to end. And seeing these people go through, or reading about these people going through worse circumstances than I've ever experienced, and seeing how their faith wasn't, shaken, shows me like, oh, this is how you do it. Like, they must have felt scared. They must have felt, at a loss of power. They must have felt, and even Moses questioning and saying like, are you sure you're choosing me, God? And so there's certain times where I feel like that too. But it's like when you do have that relationship with God, then you can imagine like how fulfilled you are and how great of a life you live because God is right there with you. And now we're reading about David, and we haven't even gotten through to his entire story, but I'm learning how to pray better because I'm watching David and how he was like going through things, and he was just like, calling on God, using the word of God, and he's like singing to him. He's singing to God, and people are out there trying to take him out. So it's like that is definitely something that is not lost to me. Okay, so what are your hopes for the second year of reading, and any advice you might offer to somebody who's considering or not considering reading the Bible? So hopes for the second year of reading.
Man, the hopes for the second year of reading is, man, just to get more out, to get a better understanding about the Bible and make my relationship with God stronger. That's what I want to get out. I want, and I'm probably going to learn a life lesson. I just don't know what yet because I haven't read it yet. Yeah. And I think that's going to, going to carry forth. And what
advice would you offer to anybody who's considering reading the Bible? Or if they're not, I don't know.
Just be consistent with it and take your time. There's no rush to reading it. There's no time limit. Like, listen, if you want to read it in a year, okay. But if it takes you 3 years, that's okay. Just take your time, because it's not about reading it. It's more about understanding.
Yeah.
Understand what God's trying to tell you. Don't just brush through it and not get His full teaching, because you'll miss it.
Yeah, and then it was for nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I hope to get out of the second year of reading is, I'll be grateful to get what I got out of the first. Just the peace that it brought me, and the hope, and the information too. So I hope to get that. I know it's going to come with a level of feeling more accomplished because we're getting through it, and then I can be able to know to myself that like this was a goal of mine, right? I wanted to do this and I've done it, so I know I'm going to get that just as an aside, but that doesn't really have anything to do with what the word is. It's just something that, I wanted to accomplish this, and so it's happening. But hopes for second year, man, I'll be grateful to get out what I got out of this first year. Just that peace and that joy and that hope of like every day just having that thing in your ear, and you go to work and I'm not irritated with anybody. I'm not upset, and I sometimes do get upset in traffic, but I'll bet those were days that I didn't read. And then just having that understanding and knowing, and just by exposing yourself to the word. Advice that I will offer to anybody considering reading the Bible, I don't want to take your answer. I'm going to say, if you can, I was gonna say if you can, read it with somebody else, but I don't want that to be a thing because everybody needs to do it personally. We're just lucky in the way, or blessed really, in the way that we have each other because we're both super interested in it. And there are times where we're like, well, you know, we never said like, oh, we're not going to be able to read today. Or we have said that before, actually, and we'll push it to another day. But, like, we're both into it. It's not like one of us is dragging the other one along. So that's really cool. I don't know if you have a person like that, so I can't suggest, like, oh, get a partner. But it doesn't have to be a spouse. You know what I'm saying? It could be a sister or a friend or some random person on the internet. Like this is one of the beautiful things about where we are is that you could have a reading partner on the other side of the world, and it's just, you know, you making a connection and saying you could start a group. You know what I'm saying? Like a Facebook group about reading the Bible. We have a Facebook group, and we haven't really been able to be in there, but. You know, if you search it, is it crazy or is it God? You know, go ahead and join it. But I would have just my advice would be to get a partner. But okay, if you can't do that, I would say take notes. Right? That's one of my planning things. Take notes because sometimes when I go back and look at my notes, I'm kind of shocked that I made certain connections or that sometimes I don't remember writing what I wrote down. But sometimes I go back and look at it because I keep them all in one place and I'll be like, wow, this is really interesting how I'm interfacing with this information and like who I'm becoming, who I was when I started versus like the person I'm becoming. So I would say take notes. So that's all we have for you today, folks. You know, we're excited to continue this journey with you, and we're going to keep going and keep reading, and we just invite you to come and join us. We encourage you to pick up your own Bible and start reading along with us and chiming in. And one of the things that I look forward to is meeting more people and engaging with people that we already know about the Bible and what they think about it. And so that's something I'm looking forward to. So anyway... That's all we got. Yes. We want you to... do we have any shout-outs? Yes. One major shout-out is to Miss Damita Jo's merch company. I'm going to leave the link in the bio. We got these shirts from her, and they are nice and soft and comfortable. And they say, believe in yourself. There's different colors. She has different designs.
You know I have the purple and gold, guys.
Yes, we all know. Because of that. Yep. So anyway, we are excited. That's our shout out. We just want to remind you to not take our word for it. Go to the source. Read your Bible. Okay. All right. Here's to this year, guys. Bye-bye. Bye.